きだよ君じゃなきゃ嫌なんだってときめくこの胸が熱いんだよ愛したいねどうしたい君したいってわがままかな止まらせたいくらい好きだよ群青に光る並木道で
I think we are getting into it now. Sets ended up missing like basically every match today, but we get to catch the last match, and it should be a good one, I think. Pretty close seeds. I was looking at qualifiers earlier, and we don't have too much info on Fantashm or Ponta here, but Nomad 1 is his best score for qualifiers, same as MkN, and both of them had their worst score being their Nomad 3. So we're likely not going to see that pick. But I could very well see a lot of DP coming out from Ponta and a lot of hard rock coming out from MkN. And the Nomad 2 start here is, I think, pretty good. I think I did see a little bit of Ponta warming up earlier. It looks like his tapping is one of his stronger skill sets, and probably wants to lean into that right at the gate. I think that's also a great way to build momentum here if he's able to take the point, so we'll see how that goes. I think, so given this head-to-head matchup, we're probably seeing a lot of consistency hits from both of them. It doesn't seem like, looking at a lot of their plays, especially recently, they're not too gimmicky of players. We're going to see probably a lot of mechanics, a lot of consistency picks, unless we see a crazy outlandish Nomad 5 pitch or something of the likes, which I don't even know would happen at this point. It's probably just going to be mostly standard hits going into this match. Like I said before, I think Fanta clearly showing that his tapping is on point, wanting to lead this match off with probably their biggest comfort pick. I know that a lot of the DTs, a lot of the No Mod 2 skill set, and a lot of the tapping in general, they seem incredibly comfortable on, and they're showing it pretty well here. Full 1-point athlete and holding combo pretty much all through this map. This is the only hard section towards the end here, which they could still trip up on, but unfortunate. But yeah, building up that score lead as much as they were able to so early on definitely made it pretty impossible to come back here. Although, I think there are some real nerves already coming through on just the very first map pick, because they did end up dropping, you know, nearly 3% ad towards the end there, if you account for MkN catching up in the accuracy department. So, it's going to be interesting to see if that continuously becomes a factor in a lot of these maps, because that was a pretty huge lead that got pretty close towards the end there. So if they only come away with like a really small lead and that happens again, he could lose some points that he definitely should not be losing. Yeah, similar to what I was thinking right at the get-go. I think MkN picks probably his preferred and like most comfort pick here. Anything in the hard rod pool, I could very well see him picking into here, and probably, judging from some of the qualifiers, also the hiddens. I don't think, obviously MkN's not preferred on hidden in a lot of matchups, but Fanta barely plays with mods from judging by his profile. So I do think maybe that comfortability factor could be an issue here. And he did outscore, MkN did outscore on the hidden one in quals, so there's a pretty real chance that if he picks consistency hidden picks, that could pay out for him. But I say that all and we're on a hard rock right now anyways. And this is gonna be a tough one. I think all the times I've seen this played, accuracies are gonna be consistently low here, or at least lower than the rest of the pool. So being able to hold here is going to be pretty massive, because drops, chain misses, anything of the sort is easily going to set back one of these players. And MkN after an early athlete.
Fantastic. Amazing.
Ooh, really rough drop there. I do think that, you know, before we even get into one of the harder sections of the map, dropping there is really going to make this tough. And as you see, Fanta already taking the lead now going into this section. 28k score, 35k score in climbing. I mean, I do think it, like I said, he still has the accuracy lead, but because the accuracy is not very high, that one miss was kind of everything at this point. So now it's up to Fanta to hold strong and not have a similar breakdown from before. Cool. And now they both drop at this point. Okay, similar to what I was talking about before, it does look like there's probably some nerves coming through. This is not going to be any much harder than the section that Fanta was earlier, like, playing pretty comfortably. but you can see the aim getting a little bit wider, a little bit less comfortable on some of these streams. Or consistent nodes, rather. Not really any streaming. MkN misses on pretty much nothing there. It wouldn't have really mattered too much, I think, with Fanta holding the combo now, with basically no map remaining, but alright. Another point secured, and that was a break point too, so that, I do think that's going to be a tough one to bounce back on at this point. I think a lot of the skill sets that they probably would prefer, like MkN being so comfortable in consistency pits, Fanta's also comfortable on. A lot of their scores being so similar with their seeding from the qualifiers means that they're basically going to be performing, you know, about average here. Or about average compared to each other. So losing your breakpoint there is really going to hurt. Yeah, and this was the second pitch. Honestly, this probably would have been what I thought Fanta would have pitched first going into this match. Just a quick cursory glance at their profile, I do see they play 300 BPM fairly often, so I think this is probably a speed that shouldn't be too out of their realm of comfortability. It's going to be whether MkN can, you know, put up a respectable score here, and even if he does lose the point, you know, still rely on some of his other hits. And this is going to be a really short one too. So I think getting off this early combo lead that Fanta has going in is going to be all the more painful going forward on the match. You know, as you can see, 100k in time in score lead, and although the match started off pretty not amazing, he did bring it back to 93, 94 realm. Meanwhile, MkN has not really had great footing in the match from the get-go. The combo he built up there was probably the best he had going in, but, you know, with how shaky the accuracy was, it almost felt like it was inevitable for him to break eventually. But Fanta looking like he might just close it out with an FC. We'll have to see. Alright, I'm taking over for Noom on that one. Yeah, 700k and going. This, again, I think the Nomad 2 and the DT2 here were going to be probably MkN's hardest points to try to secure. And losing that break point doesn't make the match any easier now. And we get the hidden pick. Yeah, similar to what I had thought. I do think his hidden and his hard rock, especially his hard rock, because he plays a lot more hard rock than hidden, obviously. But I do think his mods, he should be favored ever so slightly. You know, as long as it's not the DT. Neither player really leaning into any of the Nomad 1 consistency type yet. I think those are probably going to be the more scary picks because of how well they both performed on consistency maps in the qualifiers. They probably don't want to lean into them too heavy. Keep their picks, you know, relatively on their side. I think, you know, similar to last match, Fanta did get off to really low accuracy to start out that DT2, and then slowly seems like he found his footing throughout the match. We'll see if it's similar on this map, but already both players holding pretty well into the intro. This is the first major build-up where I think there's going to be at least a couple drops, assuming that these players are not too comfortable on the sliders, so we'll have to see. Already one drop to be had, but I mean, I do think even though MkN is holding on these sliders, it doesn't look like either player has, you know, the accuracy is kind of on a razor thin line here. I do think there is a lot of slider ends being missed and a lot of opportunity for a score to bounce back, assuming that you don't hold combo through this. The accuracy in this map being, like, I think the major factor that's going to set a lot of matches apart. Right now, it does seem like MkN is kind of coasting through the first major slider section. You know, he is
amazing.
He's not known to play hidden. I think if anybody's seen any of his scores before, knows that he does not like the hidden here. But, you know, judging by, he did perform not just better, but much better on the hidden in pool or in qualifiers compared to Fanta. So maybe that was his strategy going in. I think knowing that he's not going to be as comfortable on these picks, you know, even if it's not a pick you would want to pick yourself, he leaned into it, and so far, looking like it will secure this point very comfortably for him because of that choice. Final hard section, similar to the first one, but these sliders, again, with how large some of these jumps are between some of these like sliders to slider ends, very easy to break on, as we had already seen, you know, for Fanta in the beginning and for MkN in that last section. With a 300k score lead, I mean, this pit did not look close at all. I think it definitely worked out. He definitely knew going in that he'd probably have to have something in his back pocket, and I think judging by the pits we've already seen, we know that Fanta's going to beat him out on speed, unless nerves play a factor. It's a good point secured. Now, DT1. This one's going to be another rough one, in my opinion. I think with what was left in the pool, it was probably going to be DT no matter what. I do think this is probably something that MkN should have, you know, the ability to put up a good score against. But losing that breakpoint so early kind of means that he needs to put up that score now. I think going down on match point here might just kind of secure the match. And they're quickly into it to start. .219 BPM consistency here. Another short pick, coming in at just about 2 minutes. I don't know too much of Fanta's tourney history here, but so far not looking like he's shaken by anything that's happened so far. Sticking to his guns on his picks, and actually, for the first time, and I think any of the maps so far, looking like he's gonna actually come away with a higher act out of the first intro to a match, or to a map. Like I mentioned, super short map. It's just about to reach the actual difficult part, and it's already halfway, which means any miss here probably secures the match. Both holding decently well into the jumps. And accuracy. Finally, MkN finds a miss, but Fanta shortly thereafter. Accuracy's still going to favor him much more here, so that score lead is going to start climbing ever so slightly, even more in that direction. And you know, while MkN has the S rank here, only got that break, not a full miss, his accuracy is not going to be doing any favors now. Going into the very last jump section, these jumps are going to be considerably easier than what we had seen in the middle of the map, so it's just about closing out now. Fanta takes the point. Still an incredibly close one, and two really good scores from both of them. 659 being the losing score on a DT1 pick here goes to show how good their consistency both is, but just the time secured that. Now here we go for, you know, what could maybe be a last pick here. We're hoping that he can secure it, but MkN goes DT4. A bit of a wild pick here, I think, given that, you know, Fanta has taken both the DT pits, but it's going to be a very different type of map here. It's not going to be one that I think Fanta is as comfortable playing, obviously. You know, not going to be nearly as quick or speed-oriented as the other pits. Right, going into it here, we're about to see if Fanta's going to be able to secure this one. But again, off to, you know, getting adjusted to the map, going to be way slower than what he was playing previously. Barely getting into the 70s now on the accuracy, but MkN's not going to have too much higher of an accuracy at this point. It depends on if he can hold past this intro here. One break on that side is already really bad, because I think that's right before any of the free combo ended here. Now these are the sliders that are actually going to trip up a lot of players usually. So it's whether Fanta can hold through this section that I think is going to make all the difference. Because the accuracy is not going to really speed up his score here. Yeah, and super shaky on that. But MkN misses shortly thereafter, so it's going to be a close one. You can tell Fanta's not as comfortable on these sliders as MkN is, clearly. Lots of accuracy drops on both sides. And the score finally flipped back shortly, but oh, they both miss on the same exact pattern there. Alright, going into this last section, it's going to be who can hold in the last 20% of the map. Because I do think, even though MkN had such a big accuracy lead before, it's not that much farther ahead that it's going to make a huge difference if he breaks again. But he doesn't. He holds longer than Fanta's able to here. Finally building up a lead of his own, and just in time too for the very end of the map to secure the point. The gamble pick did work out in his favor. That's, that's again, we've seen two, I think, fairly unconventional picks. If you know MkN as a player, I don't think we would have expected him to be winning on, his hidden pick and his DT4 pick, but here we are now. Okay. The No Mod 3 pick came through from Fanta. So this one, again, I think is a bit strange because whenever we kicked off the match, I did mention that both their best scores from qualifiers were on No Mod 1, and both their worst scores were on No Mod 3. Now, given, it could be a very different time, maybe it's had more time to practice this match, but, if you're just looking at those results in general, this is a bit more coin flippy of a pick than I would have thought. I think he really doesn't want to give MkN a chance to, build up any more steam, picking something that should be pretty easy, like a No Mod 1 type pick. Alright, kicking off the match. Similar to what we've seen in maps prior. Although not by very much, Fanta did have lower accuracy, but now it's about evened out. It does look like they're both, at least a little more comfortable in this than previous maps. But again, this one's pretty consistently this difficult the entire time. There's no parts that I think are going to be too tricky, but it's going to be keeping their nerves under control and actually holding through all these sections that they should hold through. And that's the first break coming through from Fanta. And with MkN having a 99 act, that's pretty massive on a map like this. This is going to be... It's going to be a struggle to find bat now, I think. Back to one of the chill sections in the song. This should, in theory, be a little bit more free combo, a little bit of time for Fanta to build up that accuracy again and try to make another long combo run to make it back now. And like I said, despite that one miss, it is a pretty easy map throughout, as you can see by both of the players' accuracy. Halfway through the map, MkN holding, and Fanta holding his recovery combo after that miss. Finally, we're getting the score lead at 100k. This is about to be where the match can run away or flip on its head now that we're halfway through. Oh, and another miss on, essentially not even that hard of a pattern. I mean, it's as difficult as any other part of the map, but some of those nerves actually coming through, or at least, some of the confidence on the map not showing through. Having the tapping, but starting to get a little more shaky on the aim, whereas MkN, able to hold through those sections. Now MkN passes the 800k threshold. Fanta's still holding the better accuracy, but, just that consistency, that confidence to make it through this map. Really shining through here on, what is probably one of the best plays we'd have seen on a map like this. Great full combo. And, you know, MkN gets a breakpoint of his own, finally.
まだまだゲームしたいけど今日はこの辺でやめようオムライスみたいに布団にくるまって今日はおやすみ
Right, this is, in my opinion, where the pits have gotten very dicey. I think any pick Fanta makes here is probably about as favored for both of them here. And with a no mod 4 pick coming through, this is, this might be a little scary. I don't know that we've seen this type of skill set played yet from either player, really. The closest we've gotten is some of the sliders in a couple of the maps, but I don't know. It speaks to some volume that Fanta still doesn't want to pick, a no mod 1 type pick into MkN. I think securing the DT consistency where he could was kind of his only big consistency pick here. Definitely doesn't want to touch the hidden, and doesn't want to leave Tiebreaker Fate up to the no mod consistency, it looks like. Also, this is such a good map. I love this map. Alright. Starting out, we're already going to see some patterns that, are going to start tripping up the accuracy pretty hard early on. Lots of sliders, lots of notes going into some. It's going to be very easy to miss the slider ends on a lot of these sections once the song picks up a little more. And, just as easy to break on any of the sliders, given that they're not ready for them. Both players breeze through the intro, but MkN holding the athlete going out of the intro, which is kind of the theme of this match so far. Alright, here comes the first major difficulty spike slider section coming through. These stats going into sliders and coming out of a lot of these slider ends are really easy to break on, especially given there's probably going to be some tension and some nerves on both sides now. And Fanta does find the first break, which, would normally kind of seal the deal here, but MkN's accuracy has kind of wavered, and now they're running about even on the accuracy. So it's really about holding strong, building up whatever lead you can now. It's halfway past the song. When Fanta's still struggling on some of these sections, a lot of these notes, especially in that section, in theory, I think you're playing through this song normally. That might be one of the sections you probably play the best, or at least hold accuracy through. But I think in the context of this match, clearly weighing a toll on him, and what looked to be a pretty close map ends up being a 300k deficit and a tiebreaker secured from basically nowhere. Yeah, and honestly, great score too coming through on MkN's end. I do think a 630k, a 93 ac, an A rank is a great score to have gotten in the context of, you know, needing to secure that point to get to tiebreaker, and clearly he's him. Clearly he can do it. And now this is what's going to be scary now, because there's going to be more sliders, there's going to be more tech-oriented aspects, and there's going to be a bit more of the 150 alt-ish sections. All stuff that MkN has shown that he is playing better at the moment. You know, you're not going to get your runaway speed sections that Fanta is just going to be able to freely farm. And I think if we're, you know, looking at this match, you'd want it to go to tiebreaker, given that these players were so close in the seeding. And I don't think the map picks kind of worked out how I would imagine they would, given who got points on what, but we still made it here anyways. And now the next, you know, 5 minutes is going to determine who wins this match now. Holding through these sliders, it's holding through these sections that both players are going to have to try to endure now. Oh no, and I was going to mention again that they were holding through intros very strongly all match, but Fanta dropping, and in an even more extreme fashion than usual. Way lower accuracy on the map out of the intro. If that is any sign to go off of, I think the rest of the map is going to be really tough to pick back up. And again, okay, MkN does finally find a break there. So, didn't really build up enough of a runaway combo, but the accuracy really has not gotten that much better. And if anything, it's slowly started to dwindle now that there's even more sliders, even more tech, even more of these stats that even if MkN, you know, will say he will not be comfortable on, it's still showing he's much more comfortable in this head-to-head. That's typical reading section coming in with these, you know, patterns. A lot of these sliders being at such weird timings and intervals. Surprisingly, this is one of the few sections that Fanta's been holding through, but not really going to be able to build up, you know, enough accuracy for that to matter here when the combos are literally tied. Okay, he did break on that, which I think might end up sealing this match unless we see a pretty massive breakdown now.
Amazing.
Holy MkN spin. 430. Should get him to farm some leaderboards. Alright. Fanta consistently missing now a lot more than he would have earlier. I think this goes to show what I was talking about. I do think there's going to be nerves now, especially given that he was up so much earlier in the match. It's, you know, it's a rough one when you end up being forced to go to tiebreaker, and if it's not one that you're going to be comfortable in, and you weren't the one that just won the point, you don't have the momentum going in, that's all the more stuff that weighs on you. And MkN's still going to be holding, barely hitting some of these sliders at this point. Does finally miss again, but, you know, was able to put up a 700 combo, and now a 140k score lead, which is going to be pretty much insurmountable here unless Fanta's able to hold through the rest of the map, I think. MkN does find another miss. Oh, Fanta finally. He was very slowly starting to whittle away at the score lead. He trapped at about 15k, but with, you know, another miss there, not really able to build up any massive combo at any section of the map. You know, anything more massive than MkN was able to do. It's gonna seal his fate here. Now going into this last section, I do think it's kind of wild how it ended up. I think a lot of these pits, again, were not something MkN would have pit into most other players likely, but, you know, if he did any sort of looking into, you know, a lot of their same scores, the mods really were not favored for Fanta going into this one. And he let that show.
Fantastic.
Fanta
Amazing.
writing GG and smoke. It was a GG. It's very well played from both players, I think.
Excuse me.
Okay, and they both do a customary cursor slider break at the very end. Yeah, great recovery on MkN's end. Picking into the stuff that I think he needed to if he wanted to secure a point there, or secure the match. Well played. And I think with that, we are wrapped up with round of 16. Well played to everyone.
Hallo, liebe Nanase Kurumi-Fans. Kurumi im Guitar Center. Was macht sie dort? Oder Kurumi trommelt auf Rototones. Mann, hat sie da Spaß.